We are live. How you doing, Joey?
Good.
So interview with Steve Kobuchi
It was awesome.
from what was it? The Gate was great yesterday. The covers album that those guys put together is phenomenal. And
I was super bummed I had to miss that interview, but I was still driving home from Wisconsin. So
yeah,
I listened to you guys and it was awesome.
Family takes priority.
Yeah. But yeah, Wolves at the Gate, they've been such a great band and always put out top-notch music. And
Steve looks so young. He seems so young too for being in a band that's been around for 15 years.
Yeah. Yeah, they oh shoot, I should look this up. Should have had this prepared. They put out like a covers EP like 10 years ago, I think. And it had some stuff on there you probably would like.
Well, even this one, they put the covers. There's an EP up right now on Spotify with like 5 of the songs.
Okay. Yeah, this one I'm referencing is different, but
yeah, I'm sure it's an older one. What you're talking about?
No.
What kind of stuff did they do on that one?
They had a Blindside song.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it was 10 years ago.
Yeah, I think the conversation we had too about the metal community and Christianity was interesting, just because I do believe that like that is kind of the one, community or group like Christians that like metalheads are okay with kind of shunning.
Yeah.
Some metalheads, not all, but but good stuff. And again, it's like the thing I think is cool about that is like wherever you take your inspiration from, to me, it doesn't matter if the music's good.
Mm-hmm.
I'll take your message. People have different interpretations of all that kind of stuff. And
yeah,
it's always interesting to hear what people have to say. So
yeah, shoot, I can't find it right now, but yeah, you should check it out. It's only like 4 songs or whatever, but they've been doing covers for a while now.
Do we have any news items to talk about today?
I do. One is fairly recent, so we can start with that, and then if we have time, I'll bring up like an old history one I discovered.
Yeah, I'm all for it.
But the first one is the band Ghost, which I've never really listened to them, but this article kind of caught my attention. They just did some shows in the U.S. here, kind of in your area, I think, California.
Yeah, Raquel saw them. She was talking about it.
No phones. And it just made me, I think it's a discussion worth talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. Comedy shows do that. Comedy shows will do that because a lot of those guys are working on bits that aren't ready for prime time yet in the clubs. Right. Comedy is an art where you have to work it out with an audience to see how the audience responds. So they always take phones. Chappelle, Kill Tony, one of my favorite podcasts, they always take their phones.
Yeah, I got mixed feelings on the whole phone thing at a concert because part of me, I'm like, I get it. You want to capture this moment that you have with your band or whatever, but at the same time, like, it's never captured really well. And you have hundreds, if not thousands of people up with their phones, and it's just, it kind of sucks the moment away of that live experience.
I agree.
And then as a concert photographer, usually we get to shoot the first 3 songs from the pit, but sometimes, we got to shoot from the soundboard or something. And I'm shooting over the heads of all these people with their phones up. And it's just like, I don't know. I just got mixed feelings on it. So I didn't know if you had any thoughts on it, but I think it's kind of cool when a band says, you know what, we're just going to do this, no phones.
Yeah, I mean, so there's a couple of things. Remember when we were talking about Pantera and I was pointing out some of Charlie's mistakes?
Yep.
Or just like mild mistakes. It's like there's that side of it where it's like everyone's can be a critic and there's footage of every show.
Yep.
I think too, it depends on the nature of the band and the venue. Like if you're in a stadium, who cares? But if it's a small intimate venue and the band is like everyone has a phone out, I could see that being annoying. Also, on the flip side, I thought it would be cool. I had this idea a while ago, and maybe someone's already done it, probably have, but I thought it would be cool to do a music video with found footage from people's phones. String together different angles from different footage that people take in the crowd.
That would be cool.
Song. But it's in this day and age, everybody's got their phone. So I honestly wouldn't hate on a band either way. I think it's really up to them.
Yeah, I totally agree. And that, like, there was speculation in this article with Ghost that they were maybe doing like a live recording kind of thing, and they didn't want phones in it. But
that could be. Yeah, I mean, you look at a band like Sleep Token, right? I absolutely love the mystique that they've created around themselves, because we live in a world where everything is online all the time.
Right.
And so that kind of opposite end of the spectrum is, I think, a much cooler thing now.
Mm-hmm.
Much more rare anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those interesting things. Like, you can't really go to a show without seeing phones up, but we're missing out on what concerts used to be, pre-cell phones. So
yeah. And you didn't get to leave with the footage. You had to leave with the memories. You had to not drink so much beer that you could actually remember what happened at the show.
When I go to a show, I will usually only record one song, and it's just like, if my kids want to see the band that I just saw last night, I can at least show them one song or something like that. But I don't sit there the whole time and record the whole thing. That to me isn't fun.
When me and my son went to see Deftones and Gojira a couple years ago, it's been a couple years now. Maybe it was anyway, this guy in front of me was making fun of me because I could hear him, like, he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna film this." He's like mocking me because I was filming everything. I'm like, "Bitch, I work for an online blog. I'm taking this footage for a reason." Like, I was all upset about it, but I mean, the dude was right at the end of the day. Like, it's annoying that everyone's always recording shit. Sometimes it's like, or you're like trying to watch and someone in front of you. There's been times when I've been recording and I'm like recording footage that someone else is recording on their phone. Like, I'm recording their screen, Yeah,
I've taken pictures from, back at the soundboard with my big lens of someone's phone with the band in the background or whatever. And
yeah. It's
kind of fun.
It's like a MC Escher. It's like a picture within a picture type thing.
Yeah. So if we got 10 more minutes here, I think I shared, was it last week or the week before? I've been reading this Eddie Van Halen biography, and I'm not going super fast through it, but I came across something last week that I had no idea about. It's not like it's a secret. It's public knowledge, but I don't know how many people know this. Do you know he wrote the solo in Michael Jackson's Beat It?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know if I was like late to the game or what, but like I had no idea.
He played it too, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't think he was
I'm not a Michael Jackson fan, so I've never really listened to it a whole lot, but I'm like, I at least know the song.
Yeah.
And I didn't know, like, he didn't take any royalties from it. He didn't.
Really?
No, and he didn't, like, at the time, Van Halen was going through some strife, between him and Roth and all that stuff. And he didn't want his bandmates to know that he was doing something on the side. So he didn't take any credit and he didn't take any royalties.
Wow. That part of the story I did not know. I did know it was Eddie. I just heard through the grapevine and I'm a huge Michael Jackson fan. Like, that was like my first music when I was like tiny.
And he apparently, Eddie went into the studio. Michael wasn't quite there yet. He was like recording some vocal part for the movie E.T. or something like that. I don't know. But so Eddie's like, okay, I'm supposed to write this solo, but I don't really like how this song's arranged. And he rearranged the song, Beat It.
Oh, wow.
So that it flowed better with the solo coming in. And he thought, like, when Michael comes back, he's either going to be pissed and like kick me out of here, or he's going to love it. And Michael loved it, and they kept it the way it was. So Beat It should have been written differently if it was not for Van Halen.
That is fucking cool. See, I didn't know all those details.
Yeah. I love reading these biographies of musicians and stuff like that. It's really fun. You get the behind the scenes stuff.
biographies are some of my favorite books. Like when I started my own business several years ago, I read all these like entrepreneurs biographies, and one of my favorite books that I've ever read or listened to the audio of was the Steve Jobs biography. And the guy who wrote that also wrote biographies on Einstein and Ben Franklin, Walter Isaacson, which I also listened to. And I just learned he just put one out about Elon Musk. And the reason I know that is because of political news and stuff. There's a couple of hot takes in there. But yeah, those biographies, they always have the coolest little nuggets. And like the Steve Jobs book goes all the way up to the point where he's to where he dies, which was 2011.
Sure.
So there's a point in that book near the end where like Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg are like in the hospital talking to Steve Jobs and stuff, you know?
Wow. Yeah, I just find this fascinating, you know, reading these biographies, and you get these little nuggets that, you know, I never knew before. So,
well, we talked a little bit about MJ yesterday because apparently Steve is a fan. I don't know if you caught that part.
No, I didn't catch that. No.
Of the interview. And I loved what he said because I was like, we're like, not guilty, not guilty. I was like, we don't need to go into the weeds on this, but I don't believe the accusations. He's like, yeah, me either.
Oh no, I did catch that. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, but I'll tell you why. Like, and I may have said this before, but I was a huge Howard Stern fan, right? And because when all the stuff was going down with Michael Jackson, I wasn't really a big fan. Like, I listen to his stuff regularly now, and I did as growing up because Thriller was like massive when I was in kindergarten, you know.
Yep.
So I had it on a cassette tape, and I would listen to it constantly. But I listened to Howard Stern a lot when I first moved to LA because I didn't have a TV. So I'd listen to talk radio. And Howard Stern had George Lopez. Do you know who George Lopez is? The comedian? And George Lopez straight up said during that second Michael Jackson trial, he's like, the people that are accusing MJ accused me of stealing their wallet at a primary children's event. He's like, these people are scum. Like they're people that are out like looking for a handout, like trying to sue somebody to get their retirement money, you know? And he's like, I do not believe any of these accusations. And so then when that biography or the documentary came out a few years ago on HBO, Michael Jackson's biographer, who like this guy who was like with him for his whole life, came out and was like, yo, the people that made this documentary are the kids who testified in court when they were young that he didn't touch them. So either they were lying then or they're lying now, but either way they committed perjury.
Wow.
Or they're committing perjury. And he's like, what they don't tell you in the HBO documentary is that these two guys have a suit against the Jackson estate. They're in this for money. So they're shaping the perception of him. And plus he's not around to defend himself now.
Right.
And so it's like, it's what I really believe about Michael Jackson. This is my hot take it for what it's worth. But I also saw Macaulay Culkin on Joe Rogan and Corey Feldman, and Macaulay Culkin and Corey Feldman were very close to Michael Jackson when they were children, but they also had something that the other accusers didn't, which is their own money. So they both of them said, like Macaulay Culkin on Joe Rogan was like, yeah, I slept in Michael's bedroom, but you got to understand Michael's bedroom is 5 stories and has a fire pole in it. It's not like we're in the same bed, you know, I was up on floor 3 or whatever.
Yeah.
So these perceptions, and Michael was the kind of guy who he didn't have a childhood. His dad worked him in the Jackson 5. So he was kind of vicariously having a childhood through other people, you know, and I think he was just a really genuinely gentle and fragile person who got painted as a creep by people who wanted to take his money.
Well, and you know, it's unique. He was probably a little odd, but that doesn't mean he's a bad person.
Exactly. It's easy to point at someone like that and go, oh, he's a creep. He likes kids too much. And it's like, yeah, it is kind of creepy. I'm not going to lie. It's weird, but you also have to consider the circumstances and
the psychological damage Michael might have had, you know, from that childhood, that you're almost trapped in that Peter Pan thing, you know? He
didn't have a childhood. Joe, if you know anything about his father, Joe Jackson was a tyrant who worked those kids from the time they were children, you know, Jackson 5, like, get out there on stage, make me money type thing, you know. So Mike was, and I heard someone say it's almost like he was asexual too. Like there's no way he was like aggressively trying to fuck anyone. pardon my French, but let alone children.
Yeah. Well, and that would make sense if he's, mentally trapped in a child's mind, he wouldn't have that sexual urge that men would,
Right. And everyone kind of in any kind of these situations, a lot of what people say and do is based on their own internal, misgivings, or their own, like, people act on their own experience and their own kind of biases and their own judgments and their own guilt.
Yep.
But yeah. Anyway, that's
interesting stuff.
That's cool, that the part about Van Halen not taking credit for it.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if he gets credit now, because maybe not. I mean, maybe he used an alias, but that whole album, Thriller, was produced by Quincy Jones.
Mm-hmm.
So I could only imagine, like, in the Hollywood Hills, what goes on.
Yeah.
Like, nowadays it's The Weeknd and Quincy Jones and like a lot of these writers and stuff working with different artists, and so it's that's a cool part of history, because those are two people too. Like Michael Jackson and Eddie Van Halen are two like massive figures from that era.
Oh, you think like early 80s? Like,
yeah. And they were kind of siloed in different worlds at that time.
Yeah.
Like rock.
Just reading this book, I'd recommend it. I just got more and more respect for Eddie Van Halen. Like, he was total legend.
Yeah. I've never been a huge Van Halen fan, but honestly, recently I've been listening to a lot of like 80s retro, and like David Lee Roth solo stuff keeps coming on. And I'm just like, man, this is funny and all, but like, it's so corny. It's like, wow. Like, and that just like with Queen or any of those bands that this happened to, like, Van Halen got big, and some agent or executive got to Dave and was like, "You're the reason this band is everything. You need to, like, fuck them. You can do it."
Right.
All right, here comes Kaan. Let's add him into the chat here.
Hello,
Kaan. How are you, man?
Yeah, good. How are you guys doing?
Good.
Really good.
All right, cool.
You're over in the UK.
I am. Yes. Yeah. Over near, like, the west, a place called Bristol. Don't know if you know the geography at all, but yeah. It's all right.
What time is it over there right now?
It is 7 p.m. right now. So
okay. So we're not keeping you up too late.
Evening. Oh, damn, you guys are live already. Sorry, I just literally bowled in. Like, what's up?
No, you're good. That's
all right.
Honestly, that's how we do this, man. We used to do these kind of like stiff interviews, and it wasn't as cool. And so, like, a lot of times we'll jump on and like talk about like some music news stuff and have a chat, and then it's kind of like, it just feels more organic that way.
Cool.
We just like hanging out.
Yeah. Cool. That works for me. I'm down.
So I like to start with, obviously I've listened to a bunch of your music and everything, but I like to ask bands for their origin story. Like, first of all, how did you guys come about? And second of all, where does your name come from? Because it's an interesting name.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm obviously not new now, but like a newer member, a replacement member.
Okay.
But the band originated in a place called Milton Keynes in the UK. It's like I want to call it like a overspill of London. So like they kind of built these cities kind of around for people to be able to commute and stuff like that. The band was born from a previous band called Fail Silent. I don't know if you know of Fail Silent.
I've heard the name.
To create Tesseract monuments. And then the drummer drummer's now in Heart of a Coward. So the band was kind of a local band around there, and then Noddy got involved, and then it kind of exploded from there. In terms of the name, I don't actually know the origin story of the name. I just know it was like it was just like one of those things that was decided on when everybody was like, I don't know, in their teens, early 20s or something like that, and then it's just kind of stuck from there, basically.
Sure.
I think it sounds cool. Heart of a Coward.
I mean, you can kind of drill into that in whatever way you want,
Right.
It's unique, and it's like these days it's so hard to find something that just kind of sets you apart in that department because there's so many bands.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and if it's, as long as it's not a plural, then I'm all right with it.
Awesome. Well, you guys, I listened to a bunch of your stuff. I really dug the song "Hollow." That's just one that stood out to me, I think, because of the hook. But you guys have some new material coming out.
Yeah. We've got a new album coming out on the 22nd of September. It's called This Place Only Brings Death. It's like I don't know, it's quite like a dark album, but like it's all about finding beauty within kind of loss and death, and essentially that, you know, your time is limited on this planet and there is nothing more certain that your end is approaching. So kind of live your life whilst you can, basically, is kind of the message behind that. It's a pretty I don't know, it was a strange album for us. Like, we kind of came out of lockdown and stuff, and the band wasn't really a band. Like, we were hanging out and stuff, but like all the tours and stuff we had planned, the whole album, we basically went into lockdown like mid-album campaign for the last album. So like everyone was in a really bad headspace, and it took a long time for us to get kind of creative and really find that drive to actually want to be in a band again. And ultimately it took a replace, like Steve, our old guitarist, left, and it took a kind of new guitarist, a guy called Dan Thornton, to come in to really give us that creative spark. And then we smashed the album out in under a year, recorded it and stuff like that. And then, now we're here. But yeah, it's just about kind of the I don't know, it's not bleak, because there is beauty within kind of loss and death and being able to remember the positive parts and stuff. But yeah, it's just a bit of a whirlwind journey that kind of led us to here. And yeah, now we have an album, and it's kind of trying to represent the good and bad parts of everything that's happened, really.
Was there a specific place or moment that you came up with the title of the album?
This Place Only Brings Death. As in, I was probably writing it at this desk. No. No, I mean, I don't think so, but
you know what I mean? Like, sometimes you're in a spot and like, you just get hit with this emotion of like,
but
something, you know, and if you were in a place that you felt that death feeling.
Basically, like I put notes in my phone all the time, like as in, just whatever inspires me, I'm just kind of always throwing stuff down, and I just revert back to it and look through my notes to kind of see where I can kind of pull stuff out. And it was just something I wrote in my phone, and I was it was just on its own. It literally just said, "This place only brings death." And I was kind of looking through like, okay, that's actually kind of cool. And then like, I kind of read through some of the other notes, and it kind of tied into this whole sort of theme specifically for that song. I mean, I can't remember exactly where I was, but like, it's just one of those places when you're kind of contemplating things, I don't know, life, death, whatever it might be. But it was just a thought that kind of came into my head, and pulled it out, and then decided it was going to be an album title. So
it was interesting that this interview is happening today, because for me, I was just at my grandma's funeral yesterday. And then, I see this title and stuff, and it started making me think of all sorts of different things, so I wanted to ask you about that. But I mean, I'm again, sorry for your loss as well. Like, thanks. that's a hard thing to go through, I mean, I don't know, it's like, I mean, death and loss is like a big part that affects everybody in the world, how people go through that and how people kind of deal with that process is down to the individual, obviously, but it's something that we're all kind of connected with, and like, it's a bit reflective on everything that kind of I've been through in that sense. But it's also like, like there's nothing more certain than death, like there's nothing more than that, and there's like, whether you accept it or whether you don't, however you kind of go about it. And I guess it was kind of, I don't know, my cathartic process to kind of be a bit more comfortable with it, maybe. I don't really know, but I just kind of came from a pretty dark place, and then when you kind of explore those thoughts a little bit more and try and build a song, or like a bit of creative writing, or like poetry, if you want to call it that, around it, then you end up kind of taking like a bad thought and creating something a bit more, I don't know, positive, or like, and kind of going from bad to trying to give it a bit of light, or a bit of hope, at least, Yeah. Well, since we're on this subject, I wanted to ask you about a deep cut as well. All life is finite. What was the story behind writing that one?
It's about losing someone. It's about watching that person wither away in front of you, and then ultimately it's having to say goodbye to that person that you've, known and everything that kind of goes with it. And it just was a very fitting way to kind of end the album. Like was, like as I was writing it was obviously kind of a bit challenging, probably one of the hardest songs to try and get out, if you know what I mean. But also what we created in the studio was like the ending to the song, which was like a bit of the final release, like the passing over moment, which is like you hear a voice that comes into your head and it's like a new voice, but it's greeting you as an old friend. And then it says goodbye. And then, but it's all about the life cycle, like as in, well, regardless of what your belief system, whatever it might be, but ultimately life, nature is a cycle, and whether you go into the ground, into the dirt, or whether you believe in reincarnation, whatever your preference is, it's always a cycle. And that was the whole kind of message behind that bit.
Yeah, musically, I love how the song just kind of flowed out,
just drifts out. Yeah. The idea was to try and, like an isolation tank where you like float in water.
Yeah, I tried that once. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't tried it, but like that's what
deprivation.
Yeah. That's what we're trying to like create this moment. And then it's that voice that comes into your head and it's like the passing over moment. And that was kind of
you should try a deprivation tank. It's really interesting. I won't say it's fun, but it's very interesting. It was worth it. Yeah.
Fair.
I want to try that.
Yeah.
I might be showing my age, but the sentiment of, no one, this place only brings death reminded me of The Doors. No one here gets out alive. It's like this kind of a similar.
Yeah. It definitely, it's like, I mean, if you think about it, it's like Hotel California has got that similar sort of thing as well. Like as in like there's so many different ways of interpreting like that whole, you can't leave here, ultimately, like nobody leaves sort of thing. So yeah, it's just interesting way of interpreting it for sure.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
The cover art, I wanted to ask you about that. That was pretty interesting. Who came up with the concept for that? And
so yeah, basically with the cover, basically the idea with the album was we wanted to try and create like a visual concept as early as possible, right? Because usually the artwork comes like last, it's one of the last things to kind of fall into place. So when we were like deciding on like titles and stuff like that, as soon as we landed on This Place Only Brings Death, we were like, cool, let's reach out to I can't remember his second name, but it's an artist. He's called Remy. That doesn't help at all. A French dude, unsurprisingly. But all his details are in the sleeves, and you can kind of check it out on. I think some of the stuff's on YouTube and stuff. But basically we sent him like a couple of the tracks that were demoed, bunch of the lyrics, and essentially what he did was he sent a few different revisions of ideas and stuff like that. And essentially that like cloaked person is like, when they put the cloak over someone when they're passing, like as in when they're dead, like as in, but they stood them up. And then when we saw the black and red, and as soon as we saw that figure, we were like, that's the one, let's roll with that. And then, really cool. a little bit of back and forth. And then we came with the circle thing and all the rest of it. But yeah, the actual creative side was all him, but he took all that from the kind of stuff that we'd written and the ideas that we sent him and stuff. So, but yeah, we got that done super early. And then that led to all like it kind of set the tone or like the approach for everything else, because everything else kept within that, like, I don't know, the world he'd kind of created just in that picture.
Well, that's really cool. When you have that picture or that visual, it can kind of help shape where you're moving with something.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Like that's, and it really did help us as well. So
that's cool.
Yeah, it was cool. Yeah, it was cool. I mean, I love it as well. Like it was, it's one of those things where you first, when you see something and you're just like, yeah, that one. Like it was just a great moment, and especially someone that we, only spoke over email, like didn't have any sort of face to face or anything like that, and he just nailed it. But then I would say he's like one of the only like artists or like or anything that we can all agree on, like as a band. Like it's one of like a handful of things that we're not arguing over. Do you know what I mean? Because whether it's bands or anything like that, but when everyone was like doing research into who we can look into and all that sort of stuff, and we saw his stuff, everyone was like, "Fuck yeah, let's roll with that."
But that's fun when you have that connection with a certain artist, because I know, like, I got my tattoo guy now. I just trust him so much. I'm like, this is what I want. Run with it, you know. And he creates these killer tattoos that, if I had given him details, like, it would never have looked as good. So to have that trust with an artist,
exactly, you got to trust the artist. You got to trust the artist for sure. And it paid off. You know, everyone was really happy with the artwork and stuff, and it looks sick. So yeah, it's really cool.
It's rare this day and age, since very few people buy a hard copy, that the cover art is a big deal too.
Yeah. I mean, well, like I guess so. Like, I don't know, the resurgence of vinyl has kind of made it a little bit more, I don't know, still an important thing, but you know, ultimately, like, you know, like, there's going to be, I don't know, whatever going across like all the kind of socials and the visual stuff that across the whole album. So, you know, it's important to have like a what's the right way to put it, like, you know, a visual concept to go with everything as well, you know. So I'm really happy with how it came out.
Dustin, you're probably like me, where you remember the old days where you could get the CD or whatever and open it up and get all the artwork and lyrics. And I miss those days so much.
Oh yeah, I mean, I was talking to someone else about how I used to discover bands by the cover. You know, like, I found Dio Holy Diver in my dad's record collection when I was a kid. I'm like, oh, that is so cool. I gotta listen to that. You know.
Yeah, what in the UK, I don't know what it was like in the States or whatever, but like I'm like a CD tape era. Like,
okay,
I grew up like in the early 90s.
I didn't want to guess your age.
No, you're all good, man. You're all good, yeah. My baby face serves me well. But like over here, we used to have like used to be able to take a CD off the shelf and then put it into like the listening booths. And like, I just used to go and do that with, like, I don't know, like Life is Peachy and stuff, like just go and pick anything from that early era. Like, I don't know what we're talking, like 99, maybe, whatever it was, or maybe even before that. And just like stick it on there and just listen, standing in like places like Our Price or wherever the store was, and just listen to stuff there. And then just, but ultimately you just pick it off. Like, does it have a cool name? Does it have a cool like front cover or whatever? And then just go from there. So like, it does play an important part for sure.
On that note, what are some of your personal influences? Like, what inspired you to do music? What are some of the bands that you really love?
Wow, that's a good question. Because it's been such a, I don't know, varied journey. I don't know. I guess the first time I remember listening to like heavy, I say heavy metal, but like was like Iron Maiden, like Metallica, like Black Album was probably my gateway in that sense. And
that was the same as me.
Then I got into the old ones as well. But like, you know, really getting into like heavier music was bands like Deftones, Korn. I was like a new metal kid growing up, Linkin Park, you know, like as in all of that sort of thing. And I still think that translates through to like now, you know. But yeah,
it sounds like you're probably my age. I'm going to be 40 in a couple months. So.
Yeah, I'm 38. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like 5 years older than you guys.
Cool. It's all around the same era. But yeah, I mean, like my music kind of journey, I don't know, started off, I did pretty similar with like, you know, listening to, I don't know, Bon Jovi and REM in the car. Do you know what I mean? Like, that sort of thing. Like, and then it just kind of went from there. Like, I don't know, bootlegging stuff off the radio, trying to record stuff onto tape, and then kind of going from there. But
pre-Napster piracy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
As I like to call it.
Yeah, just putting like sellotape over the top of the tape to be able to record over whatever. But yeah, you know, like that's kind of gone through to like, I don't know, my transition into like heavy started, I would say, with like early Lamb of God, Machine Head, Kill Switch, that kind of like thousandsy, God forbid, that sort of
wow.
era. And then it kind of like progressed into like a bit, I don't know, a bit more progressive stuff. I don't know if but my real like transition into like screaming was through a UK band called Sixth. I don't know if you guys
I've heard of them.
ever heard, but they were like absolute pioneers over here. And that was a massive inspiration for me to kind of get into like the more like screaming, singing kind of side of stuff. And then just once you're in that scene, then there's just loads more bands to kind of explore. So
what's the most embarrassing band that you listen to?
Most embarrassing
maybe I should say the most shocking, like someone wouldn't expect you to be a fan of this band or something.
Guilty pleasures,
there we go.
A guilty pleasure, I mean, Bruno Mars probably. Like I said, like Bruno Mars, Silk Sonic, like him and Anderson .Paak when they
that is such a great record. It's like classic funk and soul.
It's just so smooth. Like that to me is like, I don't know, sun's out, you're sitting in the garden putting the barbecue on or whatever, like that's when you crank that out. That's probably cool. My I wouldn't even call it a guilty pleasure because I'm not guilty about it. Quite
no guilt there. That's
exactly. It's just
fantastic stuff.
Yeah. How about you guys?
Props for calling out God Forbid. That's a band that I forgot about that has some incredible stuff. Like I love anything with like the two guitar interplay, and they
totally. Man. I can't remember what I think I saw their like one of their songs on. It was like a skate video or like a snowboard video or something like that. I don't know. I just saw it on something. Was like, what the hell is this band? And then it just kind of it went from there. Like
I saw them open for Cradle of Filth.
Oh wow!
In LA, yeah,
nice.
And it was crazy because the Cradle of Filth fans were kind of like not into it. Like the people around me anyway were like kind of dissing them, and I was like, "What are you talking about? These guys are awesome."
Such a good band. But I never got to see them live either, which I was kind of a bit devastated about. But it's one of those things. Yeah. Just trying to think
I have so many disappointments like that. I never got to see Nirvana.
Yeah.
The biggest band of my era.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course. Just trying to think what else. I mean, grunge was obviously a massive part as well. Like big fan of like obviously Pearl Jam, Nirvana, Foo Fighters, all of that sort of stuff. Alice in Chains, Soundgarden. Chris Cornell, man, what a voice. Just kind of everything. Like I've got an older sister, so like all of that kind of grunge era stuff like fed down to me, through her. And I think that kind of helped like shape my musical choice when I wasn't really making any sort of decisions, you're just kind of listening and stuff like that. So it kind of it kind of helped me with all that. So yeah, it's cool.
I've been going back to like, so I've been listening to like a lot of 80s and 90s stuff lately because those are the eras that I grew up in. It's like I realized the other day in the 90s I listened to mostly like stuff you were just saying, like grunge, like Nirvana, Alice in Chains, Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, then Metallica, and like some of the heavier Pantera. And there's so much good music from that era in the peripheral that I kind of like heard that like I didn't really love. Like a lot of the R&B and hip hop and stuff from the early 90s and stuff is like so good. And it's cool for me now to go back and even some of the pop stuff, go back and revisit it and go like, oh, I hated this song when I was a kid because I was a metalhead and like, everything else is garbage. But now it's kind of endearing to go back and check some of that stuff out and go, I actually like this now. I appreciate it. Totally.
I was just thinking about guilty pleasures, and this might be a guilty pleasure or not, but like my go-to thing for a karaoke song is Backstreet Boys.
Hell
or something like that. Do you know what I mean? So it's kind of like I'd say that would probably be.
If you want it to be good, girl, get yourself a bad boy.
Hey, I love Lady Gaga, Britney Spears, like a lot of stuff. Nice. No shame.
Yeah.
Backstreet Boys is ironic because I don't know if you know who Max Martin is, but he's this like really famous Swedish producer who was a metal singer, and he actually made the Backstreet Boys famous. Like he wrote a couple of their hit songs, and now his name's on everything good, like Weekend, I Can't Feel My Face, to like Britney Spears, Hit Me Baby One More Time. Like,
oh, okay. So he's a bit of an Uber producer.
Yeah. He's one of those dudes too. I love this guy so much because no one knows who he is. He's very, very low key.
Yeah.
He's very like out of the spotlight.
That's cool. I mean, it's one of those dudes that's literally done so much. and he's just like just a chill guy. Yeah, no, that's cool.
He's had a #1 Billboard hit like every year for like 15 years or something like that.
As you do, yeah, casual, humble brag.
Yeah, that's just normal, right?
As you do, yeah. It's just a 9-to-5 job.
Well, speaking of hits or singles, "Surrender to Failure." Yeah, amazing song. I love that.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, what was did you guys kind of direct a music video for that, or did you just pick an artist for that as well, or?
So we worked again, like we wanted to kind of keep within the same concept and like use essentially like the same people throughout. So we used a director in the UK, a guy called Zach Pinchin, for across all of the videos, and he's somebody who like we've worked with before, plays in a great band called Modern Era, just has like a really cool like visual arty style basically, and we just wanted to get him on board to just do all of the music videos with us. So he's kind of done all of our singles. So it's again a similar sort of thing where you trust him, send him the track, and then he sends you like the brief and some ideas and references for you to kind of see what he has in his head, and then ultimately I just go and do like weird things like shout at a red wall or something like that. I'm kind of like, I feel like an idiot doing this, and he's like, yeah, don't worry, just try this, try that, and then like I don't know, a week later you've got a music video and you're like, that looks cool. But
I've always wondered that, you know, I've obviously never made a music video, but like you got to feel weird probably filming some of those things, but then when they put it all together it looks amazing, you know?
I mean that particular video was like all about for me, I was just in like a red room in this old like weird like disused mansion in Manchester, and he was like, I want you to like communicate to someone through a wall, and I was like, the fuck are you talking about, man? How am I gonna? But he was just like, just go at the wall, you'll get into it. And I was like, okay, cool, sure. I did that, and like that was weird. But then one of his other videos was for Decay, another single, and we were like, it's about time, and to time we are enslaved, like destined to decay is one of the lyrics, right? So he was like, it's like an hourglass, so and you're inside the hourglass and the sand's falling on you, and I was like, that sounds cool, like how on earth are we going to do that? And I turn up to this shoot, and he's got like he built like a frame out of like, I don't know, plastic, like whatever. He's rigged this frame with like a tarpaulin across the top with holes in it. And then he's getting his mates to like pour sand in. And then I've stood underneath, and they're like shaking this thing whilst I've stood under there. And like, but my pockets are like filling up with sand. If I lift my head up too much, I'm getting like sand in my eyes. I've got to like perform and breathe in this fucking sand and stuff. Like, honestly, that was one of the times I was like, what the hell am I doing right now? But you look at the
better
video,
sport than me. I hate sand. I hate sand so much.
Well, that is, I mean, that's a strange thing to hate, but yeah, I can.
It gets everywhere. It gets everywhere. And I got 4 kids, and they all bring it in too, and I can't handle it.
Yeah. The way you said that though, Joey, it's like my list is like sand, sharks, bad drivers, like
Al Qaeda.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I can completely vibe with sand. I had fucking sand everywhere for ages after that, like in my jacket, like in my fucking shoes, jeans and stuff. Yeah, it was wild. But the video looks cool, so I guess you got to suffer for your art or whatever.
Yeah, you're like, I'm a band vocalist, not a method actor, guys. Like,
exactly. Yeah. There's none of that going on. But
at least you got the director, a good director. It sounds like.
Yeah. It's cool. And it's been a great guy to kind of work with. It's been awesome. You know, his vision has really helped help us create like this, I don't know, without getting too cheesy, like this world that we've created with this album, and the visual concept and stuff has really come together because by trusting those 2 artists, essentially, like, you know, trusting their vision, and they kind of helped us, and we managed to merge it all together to create something really cool. So yeah, I'm really happy with it.
I would love to see the stats too, but YouTube and video is a massive part of where you're going to be heard these days too. So
yeah, completely. Like, you know, it's such an important platform now. Like, you know, I mean, everybody uses YouTube all the time. You know, like it's the second, like people use it just like Google. If you need to solve something, you're like, someone's already done a how-to. You know, you want to find something. Totally. Someone's already done that. You want a review. You want to, you know, whatever. Like it's such a it's become such an integral part of I don't know, not like just society as well, but like also unfortunately the marketing side and the release side of like music and stuff like that, you know, podcasts as well, you know, all that's on there. So it's,
I mean, I feel like it was always this way, it was more siloed and there was more gatekeeping, you know. It's a little more, at least with YouTube, it's a little more of an open democracy to some extent, you know, like bands that maybe don't have the kind of clout or the backing that others do can break through a little easier.
Yeah, sure. I mean, well, you know, well, if the algorithm picks you up, you start getting those good, I think it's more discoverable, like as in the, you know, rather than like, I don't know, with this different platform, but like, you know, with Twitch and stuff like that, you know, it's a different sort of thing. But yeah, I mean, you know, YouTube is like, it's I don't know, it's a double-edged sword, you know, like, you know, just don't read the comments.
Right. A lot of people listen to music through it though, too.
Yeah.
So it's like even, and now they're kind of venturing into podcasts, but I saw I think, do you know who Rick Beato is? Have you ever seen him? He's like he's like this music guy, but he's so amazing because he plays, he's a musician. So he'll go like, why this song is good. And he'll play the chords and do all that stuff. But he also does stuff where he talks about like the state of the industry right now. And he did this thing. Here's the top 100 songs being played on Spotify and like, you know, who the artists are and how many plays they're getting. And, but one of the things that I saw him do was talk about like the major platforms where people consume music now. And YouTube's definitely like one of the top 3.
Yeah, totally. I mean, you know, like like if you think about, I don't know, they did that whole premium thing to kind of stop, you know, for people making like, I've been to, you know, people being like, oh, let me share a playlist with you. And I was like expecting a Spotify playlist or whatever. And it's a YouTube playlist. It's like, oh, okay, but I don't have premium though. And they're like, well, you're an idiot. And I'm just like, you know, it's just like, I have premium Spotify, but I don't, you know, like, it's just like, I don't, you know, but it's just
you got to watch the commercials.
Yeah, very well. It's just a versatile platform, you know, in that sense. So, yeah.
Well, also on that note too, I believe that it's counted now as part of like what certifies like a gold record or like a platinum record. Like YouTube plays are totally part of the charts.
Yeah, but yeah, no, but that's how people are consuming music now. So you know, it should be counted. You know, it's not down to like physical CDs or I don't know, even downloads or whatever. You know, like as in it's like, you know, what are your numbers within that first week or whatever it might be. So yeah, I mean, it's just kind of showing that, you know, the industry is still kind of adapting to all of it, but it's good to see that, you know, that is kind of being taken on board because it does mean that like, you know, more independent or DIY bands can have that opportunity to really like, I don't know, break through in that sense, but you know, ultimately just get a bit more of a platform through it.
Yeah. Do you have a hard stop at 11:30? After half hour,
whatever time it is by you.
At 7:30. No, not a hard stop at all. No.
Okay, cool. Just wanted to make sure because you know sometimes we get to talking and we get like if you have another show you got to jump on or anything.
No. I was given an hour, so yeah, I'm just chilling.
Oh, awesome.
We can just chat.
So I have time to ask you about another deep cut.
Yeah, go for it.
Dehumanize. Tell me the story behind that one.
That's like written about the state of what's going on over here in England. Okay. Like, I don't know if you guys know about kind of the refugee crisis and stuff that's happening over through Europe and the way the UK government is essentially treating people that are trying to get over to the UK for whatever reason. But like ultimately, we're the amount of propaganda, the amount of like, I don't know what's the right word, like, yeah, just the amount of like, I don't know, like the wording that's being used by like the government and by, you know, but it's just really dangerous. And it's like pretty much dehumanizing these people that are coming over, which have like, you know, they have literally no other option. They've gone all of this way. They might have family over here. They might speak English, you know, like whatever it might be. There's some small link for them to get over here. Yeah. And essentially the government is just like refusing to have them over. We've got all of these, like all of this charged language that's like turning people's, like, you know, they're not even seeing them as a human anymore. Like they're calling them like illegal immigrants when they've closed all legal routes to immigrate over here. So of course they have, of course, you know, like as in like
Sure.
they're like, so it's just sort of, it really frustrated me. And essentially what I write about is like either social or personal stuff that fucks me off basically. And this was something I just have been like, I'm just still shocked and like I just hate with this country. So had to do something, had to write something, and that's the only way I can vent basically.
It sounds like American xenophobia has taken root in the UK, because we've been dealing with this. That I live in California, you know, it's like we've been dealing with that type of thing for a long time.
Yeah. It's just fucked. Like as in, you know, people not seeing just another human in front of them, you know, just because of their differences, you know. It's just so just weird. It's very strange to me, but yeah, it's everywhere and you can't really miss it. Once you see it everywhere. You know, it's just like it's
I get what you're saying though. I read an article, it's probably a month ago now, but they were talking about, like, I think it was the Rio Grande, you know, in Texas. They were putting up certain spots in the river, like these border things, so people couldn't swim across. But it wasn't just a blockade. Like they had like literal saw blades.
Oh, I saw that.
Yeah, and people would try to scoot over and they cut them and kill themselves.
Yeah.
And it's like that really hit me hard. I'm like,
yeah.
There's one thing to try to stop illegal immigration or whatever and try to do it through the right routes, but then like to put saw
people.
blades in there, like that's just wrong.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah.
In our country, in the US, I've said this 1,000 times, and I don't want to get too political, but the problem here, and there may be a parallel in the UK, but we have these companies that make money on the cheap labor of illegals. And so rather than, you know, like they're people looking for better lives for themselves. But the way that the US handles the problem is to demonize the people searching for the jobs rather than to go after the people who are enabling the behavior to begin with. The big companies, you know, the factory farms and these giant corporations that are using illegal immigrants for cheap labor, you know? And so they have a vested interest in keeping the status quo, when it's like we could firm things up and make things better, you know, for people in general, more humane, you know. And it's like you're saying, instead of doing that, they're putting, I read something similar, Joey, about like barbed wire stuff that they're putting like to entrap people that are trying to come, you know, through land and cutting them up and stuff. And it's like, now we're trying to kill these people who are just looking for a better life for their families.
Yeah, if you saw these pictures, like they're literal saw blades, and it's it's disturbing, you know.
Yeah, it's just it's mad. It's mad. But yeah, that's essentially what Dehumanizer was written about, that whole kind of, I mean, you know, I was reflecting on the UK, but obviously it's like it's happening.
It's relatable
across the world. Yeah.
See, when I hear the background story to some of that, like these songs actually begin to mean more to me when I hear the heart behind it, you know. So I really appreciate you sharing that.
That's all good. It's all good. I mean, that's kind of what it's about, you know. Like I try and write from, I don't know, my own experience, or like, you know, how I perceive things, and hopefully people can find like I don't know, some way for them to relate with it, or if you know, if they can't, they can at least feel the message and kind of what's going from that. You know? That's kind of the idea. So
yeah, and that, like the sentiment that you outlined there for that song "Dehumanize," I mean, that can be applied to a variety of different things aside from, you know, immigration.
Yeah, totally. And you know, that's it. It's open to interpretation in that sense as well, you know. So yeah.
So when I was doing a little Googling on you guys, now correct me if I'm wrong, but it looks like you guys have never played in the United States.
Yeah, that is correct. Yeah.
What's up with that?
Haven't made it over yet. Well, we had plans for the last album, but then kind of COVID got in the way, and you know, there was discussions, and there was actually things kind of underway to make it happen. And then this time around is a similar situation, but again, you know, like everything in the UK post Brexit makes kind of traveling very, very awkward, and you know, there's a big financial commitment and stuff like that, but it's a place we all want to get over to and play. You know, it would be amazing to make it over, but just hasn't worked out so far. You know, it's like it's just one of those things. Like, you know, it's it's a tough thing to kind of pull together logistically, but you know, we're not against the idea. It just hasn't quite lined up properly for us yet, you know.
Well, it's our job to help create that demand, right? Like, you know, I mean, we don't have a huge audience, but you know, we're gonna help let people know, hey.
Yeah. Of course. Like, you know, it's all part of doing it, you know, and it's wicked to kind of be able to, you know, well, speak with people, but also actually hear that, you know, people want us there, you know, as well, rather than like trying to force it, you know, getting to that point where, like, you know, if there is that demand and there is people like asking for it, then it's going to be easier to get the right offers with it, you know.
Yeah, I'd love to see you guys. It'd be fun.
Yeah, I'd love to play, to be fair.
Have you ever been over here just for travel or holiday or anything?
Yeah. So pre-COVID, I used to work in the touring sector as well.
Okay.
And I came over with a band called Good Tiger, which was like a bit of a super group sort of thing. But yeah, I toured the States, working for them, like selling merch, driving, and just kind of doing whatever I could to travel and experience it. So yeah, I've been over, absolutely loved it. It was such a, it's one of those weird places where it's like, it's so familiar, but different at the same time. You know, it's like I don't know if you've encountered that or like been over here, because I'm sure it's like a similar sort of thing, you know, where it's like you can understand what's going on, but it's so foreign to what you're used to, you know.
Yeah, well, my wife is from Canada, so it's just like, even there, you know, it's just an imaginary line, but you cross that line and they speak English, and there's a lot of things that are similar, but yet it's so different too, you know.
Yeah, it's cool. Well, I mean, that's the beauty of, like, I don't know, travel, being able to, like, you know, witness and feel other cultures, regardless of how close they are to you, you know, like, as in, it's still cool. I mean, it's mad. Even in the UK, like, you know, you drive an hour or two and people's like accents have changed completely. Sure. Like, and you know, it's like, obviously in it's the same in the States, but you got to drive like kind of pretty far. But like we're literally talking like 2 hours. 2 hours north, 2 hours like west, east, south. Like you're gonna get different accents, which is just mental when you think about it, really.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
I've always joked around, like, at least to my ears, there's like two types of British accent. There's like the really smart sounding British, and then there's kind of the dumb sounding British. And I can honestly say you fall in the smart category. So.
Oh, right. I mean, yeah, I wouldn't say I'm smart, but yeah, I don't know. I just I don't
sophisticated.
Yeah. Well, it's like, no, I grew up near like the South Coast and London and stuff. So I guess in that sense, like, I don't know, I speak a bit. I don't know. I pronounce my T's a bit more. I don't know whether that's it or
not. Well, I mostly hear British accents, you know, on movies or whatever, and you know, like,
yeah.
Sometimes you get and I have no idea where the accents are from or whatever. But
yeah.
Well, to my understanding, too, Britain has like similarities to the United States in that, you know, we have like kind of like the metro areas and then like the rural parts, and there's different, you know, like the southern accent is more prominent in the rural parts of the country.
Yeah.
And people out here in California are like, bro, what's up? Let's go surf the man.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely parts of the UK where people are trying to be California as well. But unfortunately, it's in the west. That's like our surfing hotspot, basically. But yeah, in the middle of like farmer land, pretty much.
I've only been over to England one time, and it was actually kind of on accident. It was during March of 2020, and I was just trying to get back home. I just flew to Egypt, and COVID hit, and I had to turn right around and come back home. And it seemed like Britain was the best route to go because a lot of the European countries were closing down.
Yeah.
And so I was stuck in London for a day, and I just kind of walked around, and it took me 4 days to get home. But my first impression was cool country. I want to go back when it's not COVID, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I bet that was pretty wild. So you flew out to Egypt for a holiday and then literally COVID?
And within 48 hours, I'm on a plane ride back home. It was awful.
That's terrible.
Yeah.
I'm disappointed.
I never got to see the pyramids, but
that's awful.
Yeah.
I was at Mardi Gras before. I was a super spreader right before COVID. I was like, I left Mardi Gras think all sick, like, oh, maybe I got COVID or something. No, you just hungover.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny saying, you know, like Europe was hot on closing down, you know, like as in to shutting things down, and you know, the UK was pretty lax in that sense, you know. But yeah, I don't know. It's mad because I know like Heathrow or whatever was doing something like 300 plus flights a day for ages, just
During
like
COVID?
yeah during COVID, like, you know, before we even shut down or whatever, you know, whether that was the right decision or not, you know, who knows, whatever, you know.
Yeah,
like, you know, that's up for debate, but yeah, it's still pretty mad just kind of talking about the whole super spreader thing. You know, you're thinking like 300 flights a day, 100 people, 150 people per flight, you know, where are they going in the world? Like,
talk about super spreaders. Well, it's interesting.
Crazy.
It's interesting here too, because California, specifically LA, had some pretty harsh lockdowns where they closed people's businesses, all kinds of stuff. But I live kind of on the outskirts, and there's it's a little more country out here. And so there were a ton of places in my area that, like, I live out like in Ventura County area, kind of almost. And so there were places that are like, they're kind of like almost red state where they're like, we don't care what the government says. Well,
yeah,
this is open.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I guess you got the kind of space for that, I guess. But like, over here, things so like closed up that it was kind of, everybody had to do it, you know.
I worked with at the time COVID happened, I worked for a company that doesn't exist anymore. But it was called Verizon Media. And I think they rebranded it as Yahoo now, but I had counterparts in France and UK that I met with on a regular basis. And the guy, Harvey, who was based in the UK, some of the stuff he said, I was like, wow, he's like, we're not allowed to like leave our house. Like we're not allowed to have guests over. Like it was like way harsher than it was here. I was like, wow.
Yeah. You're allowed to exercise for an hour each day. But you weren't allowed to travel further than a mile radius of your home. But also the thing with that, nobody was checking. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like nobody was checking. And then like, and the worst thing was one of the government officials like decided to drive 4 hours north, like got stopped, and then was claiming he was doing it because he had an eye exam or something like that. It was just like it's just an absolute joke. Like, so they're just all these weird little rules, but. You know, I mean, it was a pretty wild time that everyone was just trying to figure it out as they went. But
how much did that affect the band at the time? Because I'm sure you guys couldn't play any shows or do anything like that.
It affected us massively, actually. Like we were mid album campaign, and it affected us massively. Like we're out on tour at the beginning of 2020. With a band called Monuments. I don't know if you guys have heard of Monuments before. They're good friends of ours. But we were kind of doing Europe with them, and we kind of had that European tour at the start of the year, festivals booked over summer, and then another tour at the end of the year. And then we were in discussions of doing like a new territory, which was looking at doing either America or Japan or Australia or something like that. Trying to do something where we could travel and get to see the world a little bit more. But then literally shut everything down. Bam, everybody was, you know, it was just done. We didn't zero you know, like ability to figure out anything for the future. Like it was just, everything was so uncertain that it really kind of just crushed everybody really. And you know, we're not really with the old lineup before our guitarist Steve left, like we were very much like a band that needed to be in the room together, you know, like as in to try and just like jam things through and get things going like that. And you know, when you couldn't meet up, there was literally zero creativity. Like the guys weren't comfortable, they were comfortable sitting at a laptop, but it wasn't like it wasn't the space where they were kind of, you know, getting inspired. And ultimately, it just meant that we just were stagnant for like the best part of a year and a half. Like the whole lockdown, nobody wanted to even, like, we were still talking and like, but nobody wanted to even engage with the idea that we would start writing music again. But ultimately it took Steve to kind of, he just didn't want to do it anymore because of everything. Like he just wasn't even excited about the idea. So he stepped down. We got a new guy in, like I said, Dan. But he was just more of like a self, you know, he can kind of just do it all on his own sort of thing. And he just smashed out ideas, and it just really gave everybody that like inspiration to kind of start, again. So yeah, it was a bit of a rough ride, but yeah, we got through it, and yeah, we have an album. But you can kind of.
Did you guys have like jobs you could fall back on during that time and make some money yet? Or were you
No, I was I was working in the music industry,
Wow.
like in touring and events. So it was like that crumbled. I ended up having to get a job once we came out of lockdown.
Yeah.
In care, like live-in assistant for like for disabled people, because it was either that or like working in like a supermarket or something. And
Sure.
I thought the supermarket was a terrible idea because it was like basically where everyone was going. So if you didn't really want to get ill, you basically had that. But then ultimately it turned out that within the care sector, they were, care homes were just like, people were just literally dropping dead because, someone would come in, visit and stuff. Like it was pretty mad. It was a wild time, but yeah. So you can kind of see where like the bleak outlook of the album kind of comes from, like it was a bit of a wild ride, but something I wouldn't change. It was a great experience. So kind of led me here,
Yeah. On the plus side, I feel like that created a lot more of a wider appreciation for live events and music and human interaction. So
100%. Yeah. I mean, yeah, completely. Like, and the other thing is, that everybody's out touring all the time now. So it's kind of like, you got shows all the time. So yeah, it's a great thing to have everything back. But, ultimately it has really, especially in the UK, like a lot of venues struggled, a lot of like even the bigger venues, like all your kind of big 2,000, 3,000 cap stuff, they were all closed. They all had overheads, but all your smaller independent venues, like labels, bands, everything, like everybody, if you couldn't like get some sort of income, it was just a real struggle. But I guess, that was the same across the whole world, really.
Right.
Like, yeah.
It's funny. A lot of the bands here in the States that we talk to, I mean, they're older guys too, but a lot of them, like the guy from Drowning Pool is an electrician, so he was like, when COVID hit, like I fell back on my electrician work and did that kind of stuff. So if in your case though, your day job was touring.
Yeah.
So
And
totally
or working live events. Yeah. So, and that whole industry just collapsed, and that was kind of like, pretty devastating in that sense, because your whole like life, I don't know, 10 years worth of working, is just like gone. So it was a bit, it was shit, but it's like come out the other side a little bit stronger, a little bit better, having understood the depths a little bit more, you're in a better place,
Yeah, that's the beauty of art too, is you can take that bad experience and turn it into something positive.
Yeah. That's kind of the aim anyway. So yeah, I hope we've achieved that.
I think this is a great album.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, me too. Yeah. But I don't know. So it's just a weird, like, it's just a weird process taking, going back to like your kind of dark points and dark places and trying to turn that into something is just a really, I don't know, it was a strange process, but something I just really, really enjoyed and kind of, learned a bit more about myself whilst also kind of challenging myself and pushing myself to try and dive back in and understand what was going on then and try and like, write something out of it, make a song out of it. It's quite like it was an interesting process for sure. But you just got to live
from death to life.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There's nothing more true and real than that.
That's awesome.
For sure. Yeah.
Well, the album comes out September 22nd.
That's true.
I would love to see you guys live. So let's hope that we can get some people on board with getting you guys over here. Yeah. And doing like at least a club tour,
Yeah. I mean, like I said, we're it's on the cards. We've got, we've been in discussions like multiple times, a few different things, but it's just, we need to iron out schedules, financial side of it and stuff like that. But it's definitely something we want to do because it would be awesome.
Sounds like you guys were on your way here anyway. And then
we were.
Smacked you back.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. We just need to get everything back up and running and make sure that we can get it working basically.
Yeah.
Well, when you figure out how to get across the pond, make sure you stop in Minnesota where I'm at, because I'd love to, so
for sure.
Yeah, I'm in LA, so you guys got to come here. It's like
cool. Yeah, I'm sure.
If you come to the US, you have to come to LA.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't come to Minnesota in the wintertime. That's bad.
Okay, cool. I'll take that on board. Cool. All right. Well, yeah, I'm going to go then, guys.
Yeah, Kaan, thank you so much for your time, man. We really appreciate it.
No worries.
And
Cheers.
everyone needs to pick up the album or stream it on September 22nd. The band is Heart of a Coward.
Cool.
The album is
This Place Only Brings Death.
Death, yeah. I almost said no one here gets out alive.
No,
I'm old.
close. No, you're
same sentiment. Same basic sentiment.
Cool.
Anyways, man, thank you so much for your time.
It's been great talking to you, man.
Bye.
Take care.
Cool, dude.
Yeah. Hey, Joey, thanks. Honestly, man, I like it's great because you usually have more pointed questions than I do ready. Like you actually listen to the record like in detail and have like really thorough questions for it. And I'm like kind of just winging it most of the time. I'm kind of just like, hey, what's your favorite band?
Well, I don't know. Like sometimes I think that's a good question, but then like yesterday I had so much drive time, I could listen to the album on my way home, and then I don't know, like some of the songs just stick out to me, and I like hearing about the backstory and stuff. And
dude, honestly, one of the most interesting things was the song "Dehumanize" when he talked about that. That was great. Like,
see, I really connect when artists are willing to share like the heart behind the song or the inspiration. And and I get it where some people are like, we kind of write generic and want you to interpret it how you want. I get that. But to me, like a creator always has a purpose behind the creation. And I want to get to that.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, I see like most artists write things in an esoteric way so that the listener can attach their own personal meaning to the song.
Yep.
But that doesn't take away the initial inspiration.
Correct. Yep.
Right. So it is always interesting to hear that.
Yep. Yeah, because you could tell he was very passionate about that subject.
Yeah, very cool guy. Like I said, I've said before, these interviews always make me appreciate the music more, regardless, because it's cool to get to know the artists themselves and like the thought process behind what they do, and just to hear their story and realize they're a regular person just like everybody else.
Well, and especially this format when you can just kick back and talk to someone. I just feel like I get to appreciate the band a lot more than hearing the same interview that you could get anywhere else.
Totally. It's much more cool. I mean, I want to get to the point where we actually have an in-person studio too, that we can bring people in. And like, I like doing this over Zoom, but I think it'll be so much cooler when we actually can have people in the studio and have a Coke or something or a beer or even, and really like interact with people on that level. It'll become even more interesting.
Get Jelly Roll to come in for 3-hour
Hell yeah.
podcast.
That's in the cards. I've been talking about that record a lot lately.
Did you listen to the whole thing now?
I haven't listened to the whole thing yet, but I listened to a couple of tracks and I dig it. Because it's what music is right now. It's an amalgamation of everything. Like it's not, and I think Steve and I talked about this a little bit yesterday. Because their band's doing all the kind of like poppier songs like Jimmy Eat World and Billie Eilish and stuff. It's like music is it's less siloed than it used to be,
Well, I when we were interviewing Kaan here, like I had the thought, I didn't want to go on a rabbit trail, but the whole world seems to be going polarized in politics and all sorts of stuff, but yet music is doing almost the opposite, where it's like
bringing people together.
It's bringing people together and bringing genres together. And it's really fun in the music world right now.
Totally. I feel the same way about comedy. What he was talking about with the COVID stuff, it's like what Joe Rogan and Tony Hinchcliffe and all those guys in Austin are doing. Like they left LA during the pandemic because of those restrictions and went to Texas, a place that was like a little more like, yeah, go ahead. Like we don't care. And now, I mean, it's the same thing that you're saying. They have this dynamic of it's bringing a lot of different people together.
Yeah.
to have a good time. Like that's what music is and comedy are all about. Comedy is all about laughing and feeling good.
Right.
I mean, yeah, sometimes
which is what the world needs more of right now.
Exactly. And music the same. It's like community creates community. It brings people together. It makes us feel good.
Yeah.
That's what we all need in life.
Yeah. Well, then I'm glad you checked out that Jelly Roll though. That's one of my favorite albums of the year. So
I'm gonna give it a thorough listening, and we'll talk more about it. Because I definitely listened to a couple songs and I went, wow, this is really.
Well, I talked to Eric a while back. I really wanted to interview the guy. You know,
I'm all for it, man. I'm all for it. If we can get him,
especially
I'm
that album, like it was you could tell it was very faith seeking. And I wanted to tap into that and start asking him some questions.
Sure. That would be interesting. There's a new rapper that Eminem and Dr. Dre just signed, and I read about this guy on Twitter the other day. He's Filipino, but he's a huge fan of like extreme death metal. Oh, and so he was like listing all his favorite like grindcore bands and stuff, and I was like, okay, like that's another guy who I would like to interview.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to talk to everybody. Like, Joey, do you realize like if we keep doing this within a year or two, we'll have talked to every band in America. Like we'll know everybody.
I love meeting new people. And,
totally.
And when you can meet new people around a common interest of music and things like that, it's very fun conversations.
And a band and like I had no idea that they had never been to the US. So that's another thing that you brought to the table there, where it's like honestly now I feel like it's our duty to like, hey, listen to check this band out. Let's get them over. Let's get some demand, build some demand to get them over here. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, my goal doing this, I don't want to ask the same questions that they're going to get every interview. I want them relaxed. I want them just being themselves. And I feel like if I put a little research into it to try to not find the cliche questions, it's just going to go better, you know.
It is better. I didn't
mean to go off on COVID like that though. We talked about COVID too long, but
yeah, no, it's cool though. Honestly, that's another subject where it's like people are just like. A lot of shit just happened in the last couple of years, and I think some people are still processing it. But like, let's really think about what just happened, folks. Like, let's really think about it for a long time.
But it's interesting to hear like what another country, what it was like in the UK. Because I mean, while you and I are so far apart here in the US, it was almost like different countries. But
totally,
you know, it's just it's interesting to hear like how did your people respond to this
And to be honest, from everything I've heard from people in Europe, we have it pretty fucking good here.
Yeah.
Like we are a pretty, like even California, as strict as we were, like I was saying, out where I am, and like he was saying, no one checked. You know, like out where I'm at, like there's a couple places that turned into like speakeasies. Like you go knock on the back door, like, hey, 3 knocks, and they're like, oh yeah, come in and have a beer. Like we ain't fucking around.
But on the flip side, I got some friends that live in Vietnam, and that was like super strict, like police walking down all the streets and and that's I'm not complaining about having to wear a mask to the grocery store.
Totally. Utah, I think, where my mom lives, did it right, because in California people were like just like ridiculous, like at a ridiculous, it was like a ridiculous level of piety and like self-righteousness with all that, where in Utah it was like you go to Walmart and they're like, wear a mask if you want.
Yeah,
you don't have to wear one if you don't.
And that's kind of where I fell with it.
Yeah,
it's like
exactly.
I'm not going to judge you if you do it. And
take care.
Don't judge the people that don't do it, and just whatever, you know.
The biggest thing, and like I don't want to go too far down this wormhole, because I'm like, you know me, like I'm quote unquote liberal. But my biggest problem with all of that was this idea that all of a sudden we need to like micromanage everyone's individual decisions.
Right.
And the same people that are like, oh, like those people need to get a vaccine would not say that about an abortion. And to me, it was like, these are both personal health decisions. Mm-hmm. And, I understand the religious aspect of being anti-abortion, and I'm anti-abortion. Like, I don't want someone to have to kill babies. But when someone gets to a position where they're willing to do that, like there's usually a pretty good reason. Yeah. Like they were raped, or, they can't afford it, or, whatever. So I felt like there was this opportunity there for people to like actually see eye to eye and go like, hey, look, I think you should get the vaccine, but it's your personal choice. Just like, the flip side,
Well,
you know,
yeah, because like over here, I heard a lot of conservatives being like, "What happened to my body, my choice?" And I'm like,
right.
"Ooh,
Ooh, yeah. What happened to that? Right. And the flip side is liberals had that opportunity to say,
right,
hey, my body, my choice applies to your vaccine just as much
right,
as it does a woman's
right,
right to choose whether or not to have a
right."
baby. And instead of doing that, if everyone's like using it to dunk on each other, like, oh, you're a stupid ass and you're hurting people. If
Yeah, it polarized even more,
it,
but it's just it's bizarre. We live in a weird world.
well, and again, it's like I get real joy from communication and interacting with people.
Absolutely.
And it's like once you talk to people about this kind of stuff and we all sit down together and go, hey, what the hell, like,
Well, it goes back to that song "Dehumanize." Like when we make people topics or subjects or whatever political disagreements, we're dehumanizing.
totally.
And I just don't think that's right. Like I'm fine being friends with and learning from people I know I disagree with. I don't care. Like I love it.
But I look at it this way. I'm extreme about it. I had this rapper said something that I love. And the quote was, "Your insanity is my clarity." And to me, it's like I've always taken comfort in discomfort. Like I seek discomfort because I know that if I'm uncomfortable, I'm learning something or I'm growing in some way.
I think that's why I like hanging out with you, because I'm very similar that way. Like I could go hang out with the guys in a biker bar and I can go hang out with old ladies in a nursing home. Like I just like experiencing different people and hearing their stories and learning from them.
Dude, I've been doing rideshare.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it because LA is such a vast city. It's so diverse. 1 minute I'm in Bell Canyon, which is this rich elitist gated community that you have to have a pass to get into. The next minute I'm in Alhambra or next to Dodger Stadium, and it's like the hood of the hood, and there's people like crowbarring their way in to get in front, and but it's like I like getting out into the city and just talking to people, rich and poor, and like I'm talking to all kinds of different people, and I get so much out of it because people are generally the same.
Just exposure to different people, realize these are people. They matter,
Yeah. And so many different types of people, but everyone's good, man. Like everyone's cool. And it's really I think that makes me optimistic, getting out there and just talking to people, because you turn on the news or whatever and it's like everyone's a racist Nazi or everyone's this or that, and it's like, no, I don't see it. And honestly, if I see people doing actual racist shit, I see 1,000 other people coming out to be like, fuck you, don't do that.
Right.
Yeah. So it's,
well, and that's like with that kind of stuff, I probably grew up in a culture that the media would label racist or whatever.
Totally.
It's a primarily white culture and things like that. And it's like, well, if you actually got to know all these people, it's just a different culture. I don't know of any racist people.
Totally.
Do we have biases and problems to work out? Absolutely, we all do.
Everyone does.
But like racist people, I don't really know any.
One of the things on that note, because I grew up in Utah, man. I grew up in white Mormon Utah. But I think one of the reasons I am the way I am is one of my best friends growing up was Samoan. And so I vicariously experienced racism. I'm not even lying.
Just being with him.
Yep. And his brother was black. And people said shit to us that when I think about it now, I'm like, oh my God, if I had understood what that person was saying to me, I would have socked them in the face. You know what I mean? So I'm hypersensitive in that respect, but also when I moved to LA, I realized, because I've been here the majority of my life now, like I've been here more than half my life. So I'm Los Angelino at this point. I would call myself, like I'm not leaving.
Yeah.
But when I moved here, I realized, man, the Latin community and the Latinos that I hang out with, the Mexicans and people that are like Central American, El Salvadorian, whatever, Latin people have the exact same values that my Mormon grandmother and Catholic grandfather on the other side had.
Yep.
in this. They do Sunday dinner together. You go to my boy Danny's house, and his grandmother, his abuelita, will not let you leave until you eat everything.
Yep.
You know, it's like it's the same exact
Yep.
dynamic, just a different cultural setting.
I was telling a friend yesterday, I am so thankful that my children are growing up where they are right now because, you know, and I'm not taking anything away from where I grew up per se, but like I said, it was like 99% white. And now my children live in a very high Asian community. And, you know, we have all sorts of ethnicities in the Twin Cities here. And I think it's great because they just get to see all this different culture and different people. And they're not stuck in this tunnel vision that I had to break myself out of growing up, you know?
Yeah, I was very lucky. I was very lucky to have very progressive-minded people around me. Growing up, my grandmother was a Mormon who sang in the Tabernacle Choir, but was also outspoken advocate for gay rights, outspoken anti-racist. You know, like so. I grew up with that. And at the end of the day, man, when you look around and you get out in, especially the United States, you see. I mean, I think it's this way everywhere. Eventually, there aren't even going to be races anymore because people are going to be so intermixed. It's just going to be humans, you know. You won't be able to tell the difference anymore. And another 100 years, we'll be so intermixed culturally that, you know, it's just going to be people.
Right. Yep. We all bleed red.
Yep. Anyway, man, Joey, thank you so much, man. I'm
glad this worked out
on today. And we got let me see what we got coming up because we have some other stuff booked that I hope that you can jump on as well.
I know in a couple weeks, my wife and I are taking a trip, so I won't be available. But
okay, well,
so don't book anyone I want to talk to that week.
Most of the time, I'm working with people going like, "What day can we get this person?" I'm trying to get. Well, I don't want to say it on stream because if they don't come through, then I'll be mad and it might make them look bad. But. So we got Igor Amadeus Cavalera, who's Max Cavalera's son. That's the 27th. We got Serena Cherry of Svalbard. Now this one I'm pretty actually kind of pumped about. I started listening to some of their stuff, and I love these bands. I love the women of metal thing. Like it's very cool that there's like so many female fronted bands out here doing the heavy shit. And then Fred Calderon of Carnifex is actually our next scheduled date.
That one's next week.
Yeah, actually, I'm gonna book. Yeah, I've got a couple people on deck that I'm gonna set up. So I'll email you.
Sounds good.
Anyway, thanks, Joey. Guys, get out and check out Heart of a Coward, Kaan Tasan. Thank you for stopping in, and we will see you all next time.
Awesome. See you later, man.
Keep it brutal.